grew up in Salt Lake City and always painted, but it was really when I got to high school that a teacher said, "You've got something," and I believed her. And I went straight from high school to the University of Utah to study with Paul Davis, who she recommended a lot. And I had the best education. It was the best 4 years ever. I just took as many classes as I could and did the helper workshops and just painted as much as I could and loved it. When I graduated from there, sadly, I took about 6 years off because I needed to work, and I kind of got caught up in that and it got away from me. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, I quit my job and committed to painting full-time, and I've been doing it ever since. You know, I use a really soft brush. It's almost like a watercolor brush instead of an oil brush, so it doesn't leave a bristle mark, but it holds my paint pretty wet, and at the end of each stroke, it almost just does like a little kiss. And I don't ever blend on the canvas or the panel. I do all my blending on the palette so that the colors, like I'll have one value and one color and it just touches next to the other. I never push them together, and if they accidentally blend, I clean it up and wipe it back down because I like the look of the puzzle piecing. It almost looks like a paint by number or a puzzle, like pieces of color and value just sandwiched next to each other, and somehow it turns the form by the time it's done. I'm not fast by any means, but I know what I like, and there's nothing like a good brush stroke in a painting. Like I can look in a painting and tell you my favorite 5 brush strokes. I mean, some of them just go so nicely. I learned the value and color theory in school, but then I kind of took it to another level, and it almost gets stronger and stronger the more I paint. Like I push the value farther, and I push the color farther, and I push that puzzle piece look farther. The most exciting thing to me is when I can leave it pretty open. I don't have to close it in as much, so it's almost pretty abstract, but somehow it reads as a shoe. But you look up close and it's really just like 100 brush strokes sandwiched together, but it reads as a shoe. So I think that part of my work is getting stronger as I paint more. I try and put in just enough detail so that it reads like a stitched shoe, but you're not seeing every single stitch, but somehow it still reads as that. And then you can adjust the value to make the different shadows and the highlights, and yeah, it's not hard, it's just painting. But it takes a lot of time, but I love it. The shoes started, I don't even know how they started. It's like I did one and I loved the form of it, and it just seemed like it needed to be painted, and shoes are so beautiful and they're such a great shape and they've got texture, and some of them are furry and some of them are slick, and so I just kind of got so excited, like it was a form that you could just keep painting. And I did a whole food series before, and that was the same type of thing. Like you could never paint the same thing twice. You know, you could do a sesame bagel and an Asiago bagel and a plain, but you know, and you'd have all these different paintings because they just have such wonderful value and surface and form, and then people like shoes, so I just kept going. It just turned into somehow like 27 paintings. But yeah, it's been fun, and I could keep going on shoes because again, you'd never paint the same thing twice. I did a big tool series that was really fun, like mechanical images. I really liked how that worked with my paintings. I thought that lended itself well in books. I got really into books for a while, and I think I'd like to go back and do some more because the linear stroke was very cool, and then the text, those were a riot to paint. So food, cocktails, shoes, books, I mean, you name it, I'd do it. As long as I can have it at eye level and my perfect lighting on it, yeah, I could paint it. I think. I'd like to paint it, I should say. I think the strongest thing for me is just doing it. Like, I couldn't do it part-time, and I couldn't do kind of a halfway. I had to fully submerge myself in it and do it. I treat it like a job. I work 8 hours a day. My studio's in my home, but I pack a lunch for my basement, and I work 8 hours. So I think that keeps me growing, because I think if I were just dabbling in it here and there, my style wouldn't be growing and getting better and stronger, and I wouldn't be stronger. But doing it that many hours, you're bound to get better at it. So I think that's the key, is just do it as much as you can. We have a rambler, so I took over the whole basement, so I have like 1,500 square feet down there, and it feels like I'm going to work, which makes a big difference. You know, I can leave it a wreck, and the dogs don't come down, and it's my space. It's like I'm going to work. It's an old home, but we've done cool things with it. My husband he's a contractor, so he asked his rain gutter guy to make some shelves. So all along the walls of my studio are these long metal shelves that I just prop all my paintings up on. And on the back wall, there's this huge mirror. It's a pretty cool space. People like it. I think I'm happy because I feel so lucky that I get to do this. I think there's so many so talented people out there that just don't have the window or the space or something. So I just feel like such a lucky girl to be as busy as I am and to just get to do this full time. It's still like, people pay me for this? Like, I still like, really? When somebody, I mean, it just feels unreal. It's just too good to be true.